Yeah, we're live. Good afternoon, everyone,
Okay.
and welcome to this webinar. Is there anybody in the room? Welcome, everyone. Today is a lovely day, and I have our able presenter, Adebisi, with us today. Adebisi, how are you doing?
I'm fine. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, everybody
Good
joining us.
afternoon to see you. If you're just joining us, please leave your name and where you are joining us from on the comment section, and so we can then go and start our presentation. So why are we doing this presentation? Basically, it's not necessarily the brilliant student that passed the ICAN exam, but it is a student that actually understands what to do in the exam hall. So there are a lot of things that goes into making a student pass the exam apart from being brilliant. Being brilliant is not a negative, it's a good thing, but you don't have to be brilliant. You just have to be a good average student that follows simple instruction to pass the ICAN exam. So being brilliant is a plus. If you can win prizes in the exam, it's a plus. So, all right, Sam is joining us from Lagos. How's Lagos today? So if we have any other person in the house, please indicate by telling us where you are joining us from and by indicating your name and where you are joining us from so I can acknowledge your presence. So on this note, I'll be handing over the mic over to Adebisi. So we have basically 1 hour to go, and then we'll be able to come up with tips and things that we need to go into this exam and come out successful. All right, Adebisi, you can please go ahead and introduce yourself and share your screen and continue with your presentation. So over to you, please.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Adebisi Adedayo, and I will be the one anchoring this session for Business, Finance, and Management webinar. So I'll go ahead to share my screen now. All right. I welcome everybody to today's webinar session on Business Management and Finance, powered by Starry Academy. So basically, today our major objectives goes thus. At the end of this webinar, students will understand and appreciate effective time management, reviewing, understanding, and analyzing question requirements carefully, structuring answers to earn more marks. So basically, these are the objective we are trying to push out to every one of you joining us live, because at the end of this webinar, we want our students to be able to know how to effectively manage their time during the examination, know how to understand question, know how to analyze question, know how to review questions requirements carefully. It's not about just reading alone. If you have all this stuff on your head, but then you don't know how to answer the question, is a big problem. It's not just okay to read, but you also need to understand what the examiner is actually demanding of you. You need to understand what the examiner is requiring, how the examiner is requiring you to answer the question. So these are issues we'll be discussing majorly today in the course of this webinar. We'll also be talking about structuring your answers in order to earn more marks. So these are our objective for today's webinar, and I'm sure you are going to get a lot of things from today's webinar, even as you prepare for the forthcoming examination. So like I said, we need to understand question. You need to understand how the question are being asked and what the examiner is actually expecting of you to do. So we have some words here, some verbs here demanding how question is being answered. It's being asked in the examination. So you have a lot of words here. We have analyze, we have apply, we have access, we have calculate, we have comment, we have compare, we have conclusion, and all that you can see on your screen. These are keywords key verbs examiner can use in the examination to test your knowledge. So we need to know what each of these words actually means. If you are being asked to analyze, you need to know what the examiner is actually expecting of you to do. If you are being asked to apply, you need to know what the examiner is actually expecting of you. If you have been asked to calculate, if you have been asked to state, summarize, when, what, interpret, list, outline, prepare, recommend, all of these words, you need to know what the examiner is demanding of you. You don't just see a word and just answer it anyhow you want. You need to know what actually the examiner is demanding that you do. So understanding the question, when answering an exam question, it is important to consider the question requirements carefully to understand exactly what is being asked. The following points will help you understand the question effectively. Now, we have the very first word we'll be looking at today is analyze. That is, when you are being asked to analyze in an examination question, what is the examiner demanding of you? What is the examiner asking you to actually do in that particular question? So we have exam requirements. This entails breaking the question into separate parts. Ensure you discuss and interpret each part. And lastly, relate the exam question to the scenario provided. That is, if you have been asked to analyze, the examiner is demanding that you give us a detailed breakdown of what the question is all about, and also into separate parts. Ensure you discuss and interpret each part, and lastly, relate the exam question to the scenario provided. So we have an exam type of question, which is what? Analyze the term monopolistic competition and state its six main features. So here now the examiner is the main focus here is what? Monopolistic competition. So the examiner is requiring that what? You analyze the term monopolistic competition by what? Breaking this particular monopolistic competition into separate parts, ensuring that you discuss each of those parts. For instance, we have two keywords here, which is what? Monopolistic and what? Competition. We need to know what monopolistic itself is all about. We need to know what competition as well is all about. Then you can now combine these two words together in order to what? Analyze and explain it properly, in order to what? Earn a very good mark in the question. Then we have another word here, apply. Exam requirement. This entails putting into action the law requirements in a given case scenario. You are going to relate the authorities you have used with the facts of the case. That is, if you have been asked to apply something in an examination question, if you have been asked to use any application in a question, what the examiner is requiring or what the exam is requiring you do is what? Put into action law requirements in the given case scenario and relate it to the what? To the authority you have used in the facts of the case. For example, now we have an exam type question here. A, apply the decision rules of the following investment appraisal techniques. We have accounting rate of return, we have payback periods. So these are the two investment appraisal techniques that we have been asked to apply what their decision rules is all about. You know, accounting rate of return has its own decision rules, and payback period as well as its own decision rules. So all of these things, this examiner wants you to what? To apply these decision rules in this particular question by stating what each of these investment appraisals techniques decision rule is all about. That is, you have to first of all what? Explain what accounting rate of return is all about. Then you come down, then stating your what? These decision rules relating to what? Accounting rate of return. Same thing applies to what? Payback period. You have to explain what payback period is all about, and then state the decision rules that has to do with what? Payback period. Then another word here we have is access. The exam requirement is that this entails determining the strengths, weaknesses, importance, significance to the given question. So we have an exam type of question here, which is what? Access three ways by which financial performance of a firm might be measured. That is, we want to measure the financial performance of a firm. So we want you to what? Access three ways in which this can be done. So this entails determining the strengths, the weaknesses, the importance, the significance to a given what? To a given question. That is, you need to know, okay, this particular firm, let's look at their financial statements. Let's see what is embedded in the financial statements. So with the financial statement information you have, you'll be able to like access and what their financial performance for that particular period, and then use it to you look for three ways or what three any identified ways you can use to what to measure their performance. It could be the gross profit margin, it could be the net profit margin, it could be return on capital employed, it could be return on total assets, it could be return on equity. Whatever ways you decide to pick, just ensure that you analyze it properly in order to what measure the what financial performance of that particular firm. Another word there is what calculate. Calculate. This exam requirement entails computing using mathematical process of determining the value of an outcome. That is, when you're being asked to calculate in an exam, the exam is requiring that you compute using mathematical process to determine the value of an outcome. We can see an exam type of question here, which is company C is planning to undertake a project requiring initial investment of what? $105 and $105 million. This project is expected to generate $25 million per year in the net cash flows for 7 years. You are required to what? Calculate the payback period of this project. I believe you all know how to calculate payback period because this is one particular topic we have treated in our Telegram class, and I'm sure you know how to calculate this. So what the examiner is actually demanding of you to do here is what? Based on what you have been taught in class, use your mathematical process to calculate what? Payback period for this particular scenario at hand. We have the initial investment given to you already as what? $105 million. And then you have the expected cash flow that will be coming in every year of what? $25 million. $25 million. So you are supposed to what? Calculate, know the amount of cash flows you'll be able, the number of years you'll be able to like recoup or regain back your initial investment of what? $105 million. So this is what the examiner is actually expecting you to do here by calculating the payback period for this particular question. Comments. Exam requirement. This entails including an explanation, illustration, or criticism in your answer. For instance, now we are asked to calculate payback period in the previous what we were talking about. So the examiner might also come again to tell you, okay, based on what you have calculated, give a comment regarding your answer. Give a comment to your answer. So your comment basically will be all about giving an explanation of what you have actually calculated. It could be that, okay, the comment is that, okay, the company C will be able to like pay back the initial investment he or she has put into the into the project by 5 years and 7 months. It could be 6 years and 7 months. So it depends on what you have actually calculated. So you need to be able to like make your comment based on what you have actually calculated as a means of explanation and illustrating or criticizing your answer. Then another word we have is compare. Exam requirements. This entails explaining the similarities and the differences. That is, if you are being asked to compare, it means you have two words. It means you have two objects, or let me say two subjects that you want to talk about. That is, you need to explain the similarities between these two subjects. You need to explain the differences between these two subjects. For example, now we have an exam type of question that is talking about distinguish between ethical dilemma and conflict of interest. So what the examiner is requiring that you do here is what are the similarities between ethical dilemma and conflict of interest? What are the differences between ethical dilemma and conflict of interest? So these are issues you'll be discussing about when you are giving answers to your to your question, when you're being asked to compare and differentiate between any subject matter in a question. So we have conclusion. The examination requirement here is what? It entails ending your answer well in a case scenario. It entails ending your answer well in a case scenario. That is giving a summary of what you have been talking about in your words, in your answer. Another word we have here is what? Criticize. The examination requirement here is what? It entails analyzing a situation to identify all weaknesses or possible problems that exist. Note, do not explain the situation. That is, if you are being asked to criticize between some issues in a question, what the examiner is actually requiring that you do is to what? Analyze the situation. Once you have been able to analyze the situation, then you identify all the possible weaknesses, all the possible problems that exist within that particular situation, and then that you'll be able to criticize, you'll be able to make your judgments based on what the situation is all about. Another very common word we always see in an examination is divine. You always come across this very well in any in your exam. Divine something, divine management, divine planning, divine organizing, divine this, divine that. So this entails giving meaning to a question. Ensure that you keep it short and relevant. For example, we have an exam type of question here, which is what? Divine management. You all know what management is all about. So the examiner is requiring that you give a meaning to what management is all about. Ensure that you don't tell too much of stories. Keep it very short and ensure that it is relevant to what you are being asked to divine. If you are being asked to divine management, the examiner is not asking you to divine planning. If you are being asked to divine management, the examiner is not expecting that you explain what organizing is all about. The examiner is not expecting you to explain what control is all about. So if you are being asked to divine management, what the examiner is actually requiring that you do is to give a brief, a short and relevant meaning to what management is all about. Another word we have is describe. Describe. If you have been asked in an examination to describe, what is the examiner requiring that you do? This entails giving a detailed account or qualities or features of a particular situation. For example, you can be asked to describe planning or describe the functions of management. What it entails is that you're supposed to give a detailed account of what management is all about. Then you come down talking about the function of management. We have planning, we have organizing, we have controlling, we have coordinating. So all of these things you have to put them in detailed in your description. Ensure that they are of qualities and whatever features that has to do with management, you talk about it and then give a detailed account of what you are being asked to describe. So we have an exam requirement here. Exam type of question, which is describe the term supervision. Describe the term supervision. That is, you have to explain in detail what supervision is all about, what features we have for supervision, what are the features of supervision, what are the qualities attached to supervision. You need to give a detailed explanation of what supervision as a term is all about, related to business management and finance. Another word that we have today is discuss. That is, if you are being asked to discuss in an examination, this entails examining in detail, using argument about the pros and cons of an issue. It means giving a detailed explanation, using argument about pros and cons of an issue. You can see an exam type of question here, which is discuss 4 main features of bureaucracy as identified by Rosemary Stewart. So what you are being asked to do here is examine in detail the features of bureaucracies as identified as propounded by Rosemary Stewart. Give your argument about it, give your pros and cons about the issue, and ensure that you examine this particular bureaucracy features as identified by Rosemary Stewart. So we have another word, evaluate. Evaluate. Exam requirements. This entails determining the scenario in the light of your argument, for and against. Ensure you mention evidence to support your evaluation. We have another exam type of question here. Evaluate the concept of what? Of a joint venture. You all know what joint venture is all about. So you need to determine what joint venture is all about, argue for and against what joint venture is all about, and what? Ensure that you mention evidence to support your what? Your evaluation. So if you are being asked to evaluate, you are supposed to what? Talk about all arguments for and against a particular issue. You're supposed to what? Give a light to your argument for and against what joint venture is all about, and in detail evaluate all that pertains to what? Joint venture. Now, another thing you will see in an examination is what? Is lists. I always like to see this word in an examination because it's very, very straightforward and very, very, very easy to answer. If you have been asked to list, you don't need to explain, you don't need to discuss, you don't need to describe anything. Just go straight to the point, list what you have been asked to list. For example, now, the requirement entails outlining several ideas, aspects, events, things, and qualities. Note, do not explain the situation. Like I said before, if you have been asked to list in an examination, or you can be asked to what? List the function of management, list the function of manager, list the function of a supervisor. So all of these things, the examiner is not asking you to explain anything at all. If you have been asked to just list the function of what? Management, planning, organizing, controlling, coordinating, supervision. Just give a list. You don't need to explain all of those words you have listed. We have an example type of question here. List 4 importance of environmental scanning. List 4 importance of environmental scanning. So here now you're just supposed to what? To list. You don't need to explain all that you have listed. That is, what are the importance of scanning the environment? That is, it will help you to what? To know more about your environment, to help you to know who is around you. And these are importance of what? Scanning an environment. So all of these things, you don't need to talk about it after listing. Just list and then end your mark. This is very, very straightforward. Another question here we have is what? Explain. So exam requirement here is what? It entails making the answer clear, supporting it with enough details that are relevant, concise, and what? Explanatory. That's like I said before, if you have been asked to list, you don't need to explain. If the examiner wants you to explain, the examiner will probably rephrase the question by saying, list and explain something. List and explain environmental scanning. So what in that kind of scenario, what you have been asked to do is what? You're actually supposed to what? To list. After listing, then you then explain. But if you're not being asked to what? List and explain environmental scanning, don't go ahead and what? Explain. Just list. So if you are being asked to explain in an examination question, you have an examination type of question here that says, explain the following business concepts, which is what? The business environment and what? Environmental scanning. So what the examiner is requiring that you do here is to what? Give a detailed explanation of what business environment is all about. You know that every business exists within an environment. A business is a subset of a particular environment. Without an environment, that business cannot exist. So you need to give your detailed explanation about what business environment is all about. You also have to explain what environmental scanning is all about. It's all about you knowing what is going around in your environment, you knowing what operates within your environment. So all of these things requires your explanation as required by the what? By the examiner. Another word we have today is outline. Outline. So exam requirement, if you have been asked to outline, this entails explaining the highlighted points stated. It entails explaining the highlighted points stated. We have an exam type of question that says, a company's directors are appointed by the shareholders to manage the company, you are required to outline 5 circumstances that may disqualify a director from office. I read again. A company's directors are appointed by the shareholders to manage the company. You are required to outline 5 circumstances that may disqualify a director from office. So this is very, very simple. This is very, very simple and straightforward. So you need to be able to like juxtapose very well your answer based on what you are being asked to do. You all know that management in any form of organization, they are being appointed by the what? By the shareholders. The shareholders are more like the owners of the business, right? So if the shareholders should appoint a management, or let me say a director, the director is more like the what? The agent. Why the what? The shareholders are the what? Are the principal. So you're supposed to what? Be a good steward to your what? To your principal, who is your what? Your shareholders. So you need to outline all of these things and give 5 circumstances that may disqualify a director from office. So one thing that may disqualify a director from office, if he or she is not what? Given a proper steward of what you have been appointed to manage or to what? To oversee. So all of these things, it requires that what? You give a detailed, it entails explaining all highlighted points. So you could say that, okay, if the director or if the manager fails to what? To give a proper steward of accounts. So that's one point. So after stating that point, you need to what? Explain it very well in order to what? To earn more marks when you're being asked to what? To outline. Another word here we have is recommend. Recommend. This entails giving advice. So if you are being asked to recommend, it entails that you give advice to a particular scenario, or probably you might have discussed in the body of a report, and you are being asked to give a recommendation based on what you have discussed in your report. By the time you get to the professional level, or even in your skills level, when you get to the skills level, you'll be coming across questions where you'll be asked to write, to give a report. After giving your report, you have to what? To give your recommendations and your what? And your conclusion. Particularly when you get to the professional level, during your case study examination, you'll be asked to write a report. That's what case study is majorly all about. And in your report, it requires that you give recommendations and and conclusions. So the recommendations there means that you advising the reader, you advising your clients on on the basic things you have discussed about in your in your report. You are advising your clients or your reader based on what you have been able to analyze so far in your report, and it has to be in form of an advice. So it is left to the reader or to the client to accept your recommendation or not. But it is very, very important that you give a recommendation and your conclusion whenever you're being asked to write a report, or probably you're undergoing a case study kind of examination. So another word here is state. State. This entails explaining by focusing on the exact point. It entails explaining by focusing on the exact point. You have the examination type of question that says, state 3 advantages and 3 disadvantages of the accounting rate of return ARR method of investment appraiser. That is, you're being asked to focus more on the exact point. You know, we have a lot of advantages of what accounting rate of return is all about, but you need to focus more on the key points, which are the key points of the advantages and the key point of of the disadvantages. Those are the ones you're going to state when you're being asked to state in any form of exam type of question. So another word we have is summarize. Summarize. Exam requirement. This entails giving a brief, condensed conclusion. Avoid unnecessary details. This is usually common in case study question. Yes, it's actually common when you're being asked to write a report, or let me say if you have a case study kind of question, you'll be asked to before you comment the body of your report, you need to start with your what? Your executive summary. So your executive summary will help you what? Give a brief or a condensed conclusion about what your major report is all about what your major case study is all about. That is, your client or the reader should be able to like read your executive summary and have an idea of what the major body or the main body of the case is all about. If your executive summary, for instance, could not give me an hint, or is not giving me an hint of what the major report is all about, then it is not an executive summary. That's not a proper, or that's not a good summary at all. So the summary should be able to like help your client or help your reader to know what the major report, the major case study is what is all about. That is why it's what giving a brief, a condensed conclusion to what the major report or what the major problem is all about. Now let's move to effective time management. Like I said before we started, at the early period of my webinar, I told you that one of the objectives of this webinar is what? To help you effectively manage your time in the examination hall. And this is very, very important for you, because if you don't manage your time very well, the time will not be enough for you. So you need to know how to effectively manage your time during the exam and even in the examination hall. Effective time management. Your approach to planning your time for the exam is crucial for completing the exam and ensuring the best use of your time available. This is very, very important. Don't joke with time in your examination. During my time of ICAN examination, I will always go to the exam hall with my wristwatch, because I believe that wristwatch should be able to guide me to know that it will help me to know if I'm wasting too much of time on a particular question. It will help me to know if I still have more time to do another question. It will help me to know if I still have no time again to do any question. So I have to be very, very fast, right? So I know now that ICAN examination, they don't allow wristwatch anymore in the examination hall. But I can bet it with you that every examination center will have a wall clock around, either by your right or by your left, or in your front or at your back. You will definitely see a wall clock to work with. So that wall clock can same time act as your personal wristwatch. All you just need to do is focus on the particular wall clock you have in your examination hall and actually work with it. Ensure that you don't waste too much of time in any particular question, right? Timing. The exam is a 3-hour paper. The exam is a 3-hour paper. The question will be in 2 sessions as follows. Of course, the session A will be all about your multiple choice questions of 1 mark each. Note that you don't have to spend much time on this session, because this multiple choice question is very, very simple. Because I would have before the examination time, I would have treated past questions. I believe you are doing that as well. I would have treated past questions, score myself on all multiple choice questions of previous exam questions. Same thing applies to the short answer question. I would have treated a lot of past questions and score myself to know how good I am in those particular areas. When you get to the examination hall, it's possible that ICAN will repeat such questions. It has happened to me severally that in the examination hall, I'll feel like this question, I've treated this question before. I've seen this question somewhere before. It is because I practiced my past questions very well, especially for the case of multiple choice questions and your short answer questions. So note that you don't have much time to spend at all in this session, because it is a very, very straightforward way to answer your question. They are not requiring that you give explanation to anything. Just go straight to the point and answer. Choose what you want to choose as your answer and be sure of what you are choosing to earn your mark. Then you have section B. This consists of 6 questions of 20 marks each. It consists of 6 questions of 20 marks each. Note that you are expected to answer 4 questions only. Note that you are expected to answer 4 questions only. Now, you need to, based on what you have been able to analyze for your section A and for your section B. If I'm to be in your shoes, I know that my section A does not require too much of wasting of time at all. It's a straightforward thing. Ensure that you don't spend too much. Maximum you should spend in your section A is 30 minutes, or if possible, lesser than 30 minutes, to ensure that you finish your what multiple choice questions. Or if you like, you could start with your what section B, which is where you're supposed to what do a theoretical writing there, right? So you're expected to what answer 4 questions. So you could give yourself, okay, let me question 1, I don't want to spend more than 30 minutes. Question 2, 30 minutes. Question 3, 30 minutes. Question 4, 30 minutes. So with the work clock you will have in your examination, or you'll be able to like time yourself based on that particular work clock. Okay, you know that, okay, I want to start my question 1 now, and I have my work clock already. So ensure that, okay, question 1, I want to finish by 12:30. So with that work clock, you'll be able to, like, while you're answering your question, you're looking at the work clock. Okay, I'm still within the time. So once you are done with your question 1, it means that you can move to the next question. But ensure that you're working alongside with your time or your work clock to ensure that you don't spend too much of time on a particular question. It could be a compulsory question. If you know that particular question will take more of your time, you could pen that one and go to the ones you know first. Any question you know first should be the one you should answer. Leave the compulsory question. You can go back to that one later once you are done with the ones you know. This is a very good way to effectively manage your time in the examination hall. Also, when answering questions, ensure they are answered on new pages. Yes, very, very important. If you are doing question 1, ensure that you are starting from a new page. So imagine that you finish your question 1 in the middle of the second page. It will be very wrong for you to start question 2 at that remaining page of remaining the down part of your page 2. It will be very, very wrong. Ensure that your question 2, you're starting it from a fresh page entirely. You have enough booklets that will be enough for you. And if it happens that your booklet is not enough, you can request for more answer sheets, right? So ensure that you're starting a new question on a new page entirely. Don't help ICAN to manage any answer booklet. We have enough, or you have a lot. So ensure that you're answering your question on a particular new page. Question 1,
Thank you very much.
new page. Question 2, on a particular new page.
Thank you very much, Adebisi. I want to welcome Tunde from Ondo. How is Ondo today? Welcome for joining us. So Adebisi, you continue, but you have about 5 minutes more to go, just to bring that to your attention. Thank you very much. You can continue, please.
Okay. So time management is very, very important, and you should take note of it during your examination. So let's move forward. Your approach to planning your time for the exam is crucial for completing the exam and ensuring the best use of your time available. Requirement first, like I said before, you should read your requirement of the question first before attempting the question. Know what you are expected to do before doing it. If you don't know what the examiner is requiring that you do, it will be very, very dangerous for you to know what you are doing. I always prefer, whenever I'm in an examination or during my time of ICAN examination, I prefer to know what is the requirement before reading the actual body of the question. Know what you need to know, the problem you have before solving it. If you don't have a problem, you cannot solve it, right? So you need to know what the problem is. The problem there is your requirement. So know what the problem is before actually solving it. So to solve it, it means that you have to read what the story is all about after reading your requirements. Another thing is scanning. Scan through the question paper to see that the question that you can easily answer, and write down some points as they are coming to your head, to your mind. You can do that at the back of your answer sheet or on the last sheet. This is very, very important too. I do this very well. Once I see that what I'm trying to read through my examination questions, and I see that I'm getting some points, so that for me not to forget, I'll just note it down at the back of my answer. It's very, very important too. Time wasters. Don't waste time. Don't waste too much time on a question. Make sure you allocate time to each question. Like I said before, allocate time to each question. You have a work clock in your examination hall. If you are not allowed to take your wristwatch, you have a work clock in your examination hall. Ensure that you time yourself based on each question. When you exceed the allocated time for each question, skip that question and go to the next question. You can come back to it later. Spacing. Leave enough space for the question you're not very familiar with or you do not remember. at the moment. Yes, this is very, very important. Especially I do this a lot, especially during my case study exam, because you know that case study you have to write to ensure that you get your mark. So in the situation whereby you have to leave space for your appendices, you have to leave space for your requirement one solution or report, your requirement one, requirement two, recommendation and conclusion. All of this, ensure that you leave proper spaces so that you know before back to what not enough space to what to actually write your points. So ensure that you leave enough space for your question. For any question you're not familiar with, it's better for you to have enough space than what having a limited space to answer them. Now, to maximize marks. So now, how to
Thank you
maximize?
very much.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. Because of our time, we'll just you'll need to stop here. Basically, how to maximize mark. I'll also pick up from here. Thank you very, very much. So you can please stop sharing your screen. Hello, students. So if you are just joining us, please remember to just put your name and where you are joining us from. Just remember to put it down there on the screen by the comment section. Then I'll go ahead and acknowledge your presence. Thank you very much, Adebisi. I think I should give you a good hand clap here from my side.
Thank
So
you,
if you
sir.
are still in the comment section, please leave a reaction for him. I guess he has done a very good job. So if you have any question, please leave it there in the comment section. Remember to share this link with everybody you know. So if this is your first time of writing this exam, or if you have done it before, we're going to talk about the easy mark, time management inside the exam hall. So the next 15 minutes, I'll use that to screen, and then I will also, all right, I will also be able to inform us what you should do in the exam hall. All right, welcome, Daniel. Daniel, where are you joining us from? Where's your location, Daniel? Welcome and for joining us. All right, so we'll go on. While we're waiting for you to do that, let me share my screen. Okay, from Ogba. All right, how is Ogba today? Welcome all the same. Okay, so Adebisi, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, good. So this is what the exam looks like here. This is May 2020 diet. So the issue of Child Accountant of Nigeria Foundation Level Exam, May 2020, Business, Management, and Finance. So the first thing we'll look at is that you should look at the time allocated. Time allocated here is 3 hours, 3 1/4 hours, which means 3 hours and 15 minutes. So the 15 minutes is for you to read, is the reading time. So if you are entering the exam hall, what should you use this 15 minutes to do? The examiner or the vigilator will tell you not to write, not to start at this time. They will tell you when to start. Like Adebisi said earlier on, there's no time actually. You are not allowed to go into the exam hall with your wristwatch any longer. However, there is likely to be wall clock in the exam hall. So make sure that you use that wall clock as your guide. So this first 15 minutes, what should you use it to do? Is to read the instructions and to go and pick the question that you'll be answering. You see, so but let's see what the instructions said here. It says section A, multiple choice question, 20 marks. So instruction, you are required to attempt all questions in this session. So since this is compulsory, right? Since this section A is compulsory, then you don't need to spend the 15 minutes reading the compulsory one. Remember, the 15 minutes is for you to sort yourself out. So we'll scroll past section A and go straight to section B. And I'm scrolling down to section B. This is section B. Section B says open-ended question, 80 marks. So what's the instruction? You are required to attempt any 4 out of the 6 questions in this session. So there are 6 questions in this session. Question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in this session. So you are expected to answer just 4 out of the 6. So your 15 minutes is you should use your 15 minutes to read through these questions. Now, Always read just the requirement. Some question has the body of the question. Some don't have. Like question 1 here, just go straight to the requirement. It says explain the following business concept. Already, Adebisi have already told us what to do when we see question like the way it said explain. So this question 1 has a child and grandchild. So it has 3 children, A, B, and C. So it has question A has one child, grandchild. Question, that is the A part has question 1 has grandchild and 2 grandchildren. That is the A part has 1 and 2. So in your answer sheet, the same way, this is the same way you should list them. But before we go into that, like I said earlier on your 15 minutes, you use it to read. So if this question look like what you want to answer, like this one says state 4 importance of environmental scanning, and the C part says state and explain the 2 methods of analyzing environmental impact. If this look like what you want to do, you use your pencil to tick it. Yes, I would like to answer this. So you go to question 2, still using your 15 minutes. So you don't need to read the body of the question because it's some question, maybe not at this level. The body of the question is more than 1 page. So your 15 minutes will be up even before you start reading the essay. So just go straight to the requirement. The requirements of question 2A says briefly explain the concept, stakeholder mapping, and state 5 main features. So this place is now 2 questions in one. One, you have to briefly explain what stakeholder mapping means. And then they didn't mark it as 1 and 2, but there are 2 questions in one. And then it says state 5 main features of employment. So once you finish this one, you finish explaining this stakeholder mapping, then you go and state the 5 points here. So it therefore means that the explanation you will give here may be 5 marks, since this is 10 mark here. Why the other ones here, state 5 main features of employment will be 1 mark each. So if it is a question you want to answer, then you tick it. Then the B part say define the terms communication style and explain briefly 3 components of communication style. So this is still 2 in 1. Define communication style, then the other part say explain briefly 3 components of the communication style. So if this is a question you want to answer, you tick that. You go to the 3rd one. And so that's how you will read through the entire 6 questions. So once you have looked through them, if you are confident that you can answer the 6 questions, remember what the instruction says. It says attempt any 4. So that's the next thing I want to talk about. Make sure you only attempt what you are asked to attempt. So out of these 6, if you know the 6 very well and you do I sabi too much and you answer the 6 questions, what will the examiner do? They will pick the best 2 that you have answered very well and they will strike it off for you. So always stick to the requirements of the question. Yes, let's attempt 4, and that's just the 4 that you should attempt. So that is what you should do with your 15 minutes. Remember, I told you that you should skip the session 1 since it is compulsory and you are not to use your 15 minutes, waste 15 minutes reading it because you can't even finish reading question 1 in 15 minutes. So, but most students would have wasted the 15 minutes using it to start reading everything. Before you know it, they don't know which one. The time had gone, and then they go into the next session and start answering it. By the time they get to the B part, they realize that they don't know anything about the B part. And then before you know, they strike that one out and go and start answering the next question that they can quickly answer. But they would have wasted question and wasted time answering the A part. All right, so we'll now go to the next one, which is the 3 hours that you have left. What should you now do with these 3 hours? Remember, if you are starting with session A, you don't have to start with any given session, right? But if you are starting with session A, this should label your exams and script. Remember here the instruction, it says write only the alphabet A, B, C, D, or E that correspond to the correct option in each of the following question or statement. So how should you answer that? So I've done a sample here for us. This is not exactly how the answer sheet will look like, but like you can see here, I've labeled it 1 to 20. So I assume that this one will not take, this first page will not take all the questions. So I go to the next sheet and I list them out here. So how should you answer this if you are going to answer this question A? Remember, it's 20 mark, right? It's 20 mark. So, and how should you answer it? How much time should you spend in this session A? So I'll go now to time management. How should you manage time here? All right, I did some working on the screen here. So if you look at the working that I've done on this screen here, you see that this place is 3 hours you have been given. You have been given 3 hours. And in every 3 hours, we have 60 minutes, right? 60 minutes. If we multiply 3 hours by 60 minutes, so we have 180 minutes. That is the maximum time you can spend in the exam. So if we divide 180 minutes by 100 marks, it will give us 1.8 minutes per 1 mark. 1.8 minutes per mark. Okay, having said that, let's go. So this 20 mark session 1, what's the maximum time you should spend there? So we say 1.8 multiplied by 20. That will give us what time? 36 minutes. It means you must spend just 36 minutes in session A. And since session A is 20 questions for 20 marks, it means that each mark carries just one. Each question carries just 1 mark. So how many minutes should you spend on each question? If we use our calculator again, we say 1.8 and multiply by 1 mark is 1.8 minutes, which means you should spend 1.8 minutes. How should you get that in the exam? 1.8 minutes simply means plus 60, it means 108 seconds. 108 seconds, which means 1 minute, 48 seconds. That is what you must spend for each of these questions. So if you start attempting this question in the exam, right, and you get to any question that you don't know what to write, just skip it. Don't guess the answer yet. Just skip it and go to the next question. So you can see what I've just done here. I'm scrolling back to the question, the answers I gave here. These are not the correct answers. I just put this in. You'll find out that this question 8 here, I didn't put anything there because assuming in the exam, you didn't know what to write. So you just leave it blank temporarily. Why should you leave it blank and not just guess the answer? The reason is that ICAN will not, they don't do negative marking, right? If you guess the answer, which you must do at the end of before you submit your answer script. However, you shouldn't do that while you're answering this, because when you start going through the session 2, sometime you will see the answer in session 2. When I was doing my ATS several years ago, I qualified in 1997. I think I started my ATS in 1994. And yes, so I followed this method then, and I realized that when you go into the when you go into the session B, you will see sometimes the topic they are describing there that you are supposed to treat will give you a cue to what the answer is. So you can always come back here to answer that. So like you can see here, I did answer question 8, question 11, question 13, and I think 14. I don't know if I did, but because my share screen is blocking that. So let's go to the next page. You see question 17 and 20, I leave them. All right, once it is the maximum time you should spend, then you leave it and go, which is 36 minutes. Then once you are done with that, you go to the session 2. Now, let me quickly go to session 2. I will assume that you have utilized your 15 minutes very well to choose the one you will answer. So when you choose the one you will answer, you don't have to answer them in the you don't have to answer them sequentially. You can start with question 6 first, if that's the one that is best, that is easiest for you. So that takes me to the easiest mark. Start with the question that is the easiest, not the most difficult in the exam. So And so when you look at a question like question 3 here, it says state 2 benefits and 1 drawback each of profession, employment, and business with copious examples. So what is this thing telling us here? It's saying, and it's a 9-mark question. First, how many minutes should you spend in that? 1.8. Remember, for each mark, you must not spend more than 1.8 minutes. 1.8 times 9 will give us 16.2 minutes. So if I were to do this exam, I will not spend more than 16 minutes. I will spare the 0.2. So that means that for this question 3A, I will only spend 16 minutes here. Then you go ahead. Remember, this is how many questions in all? 2 in 1. It says state 2 benefits. And for every 2 benefits you have stated, then state 1 drawback for each of these, which means you state 2 benefits for profession, 2 benefits for employment, 2 benefits for businesses, right? And then you will state 1 drawback for each, and then you will give examples, right? So this is more like 3-in-1 question. So if it looks very complex for you, you don't have to do it. Then this question 3B says state 5 types of digital marketing. So this one is one of the easy mark, right? It just says state here. Then the third one says state 3 reasons why government develop economic policy. This is also easy mark. So in your exam, if you want to go answer this, you don't even have to start with 3A. What should you do? I'll go back to my sheet. And remember, I put section A here. So because this place has 2 sessions, always write the session in the beginning. For instance, here I say session B 3A. So when you are writing here, if you don't want to start with 3A, don't come and start 3B in the middle of the sheet. Why? Because when you come back to start 3A, right, you need more space. So that's why I cross this place. Don't start 3B at the middle of the sheet. Just go to the next sheet and put here session B 3A continue, because your 3A can continue in that next page, and go to the 3rd page and put session B 3B. You can now start your 3B here. You write your 3B. If what you have written is complete here, then you go to 3B, continue, and you go to the next page to continue your 3C. So if the question has A and is put it here 3C1, 3C2, 3C3, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that is how to utilize that in the exam. So I go back to the question. Remember, you are not to do more than just 4 questions in this session. So 15 minutes is to just use that 15 minutes to go through and choose the best 4 that you can answer easily. All right. I will say that. I'll go back. Adebisi, I'll stop sharing my screen while you can now share yours. What material should you use in the preparation of your exam? What material should you use? Please, you can share your screen. That brings us to the part of webinar. You are to use the Starry Gold video lecture. Now, why should you do that? The reason why you should do that is because we have done the video will come up and what will update them. So right on your screen is what to do if you don't have the video lecture. So here you get the video lecture. The video lecture helps you to cover the entire syllabus. Reading on your own is good. It will help you to cover the syllabus quicker than reading on your own, or if you are going for lectures. Going for lecture is good if you have the time. Then you can supplement it with the video lecture. Okay? So, and when you get the video lecture, you will also get 12 diet past questions that are fully solved. You get 12 diet past questions. That's not all that you will get. You will also get a 30 days blueprint. What will our 30 days exam success blueprint help you to do? It will help you cover the entire syllabus within 30 days. That's not all. So if you want to get that, then the number on the screen is one you should call, you should send WhatsApp, or you should send text message to. So if you call those number and nobody respond, then it might be that we have closed for the day, and then we will respond to you during working. If you send a WhatsApp or a text, we will also reply you during working hour when we resume. That's not all. Our video lecture, you will also get um, the access to the member area. In the member area, we have up to, if I'm not exaggerating, about up to say about 1,000 questions there and solutions. So you have a lot of questions to deal with when you go in there. Remember that the exam is all about questions. So like DBC has said earlier, he has already described the verbs that you will meet. Right? He has described them. He will help you do what? Will help you through sample, in fact, past questions. As you go through those past questions, like he said earlier, you will likely come across those questions in the exam. So, and if you go and get the video lecture, go through it at least 2 times before the exam. Why 2 times? The reason is that when you listen to a music, even a music you like or a music you don't like, several times, after a while, the music will start playing back to you in your mind. It will start playing back to you. That is the power of your subconscious mind. So it's the same thing when you go through the video lecture at least 2 times before the exam. When you see similar question in the exam, you start hearing the voice of the lecturer telling you the answers. This is what our students have told us as they are experiencing the exam hall. So that is what you need to do. Does that mean you should not use any other material? No. You can use any other material after you go through the video lecture at least 2 times. Then you can, if you still have time, you can add every other material that you have. All right. So our time is up. So that brings us to the end of this. Please write down the phone number on screen and contact us. Then we'll be able to do what? We'll be able to get back to you. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much. So DBC, do you still have anything to tell our students before they go?
All right.
Yeah,
we
you
have
can
we already
share your screen.
okay.
Yes.
All right. I just want to wish every one of us a best of luck in our exams, and I pray that it's my prayer that God will crown your effort to a great success. But then you need to put in more actions based on all that we have said today, talking about the effective time management, how to analyze, how to answer your question, and most importantly, the materials we have provided for you to enable you scale through your examination. I wish you all the very best in your examination, and the Lord will crown your efforts to a great success.
Amen. Thank you very much, DBC. Thank you everyone for attending. So do have a great day.